welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. In this video, I will show you part 2 of the Sure Thing dress. By this point, you should have went ahead and finished the part 1 video and completed your dress all the way up through the bias shaping of the half double crochets. Now it's time to move on to the decreasing that we will do in the upper lace portion. Taking a look at the actual sample, we can see that this is the half double crochet section that we completed at the end of video 1. And now we get to move on to this lace section. Now this lace section is not only the same lace stitch pattern we did down here on the bottom, but we are also going to be decreasing so that we can come right across the top of the dress and get a nice straight edge along the side of the dress. So as we work our stitches along the bias edge right here, we will be decreasing at both of the outside edges. This really isn't super difficult, and we're not going to introduce any big stitches that you might not have used before, but it is a little bit unique in the way we're going to decrease. It's not the same as when we did our decreasing on the bottom of the dress to create that bias slope that we then built our half double crochets on. We have to work a little bit differently into this section. So my goal with this video is to follow along with the chart for this section, and I'm going to explain to you why. Looking at the pattern, we can see there are a lot of written instructions here for this part of the dress. And you can see here that the instructions are written from row 1 through row 19, and then it has you repeat these rows a number of times to get down to one remaining stitch pattern. So rather than following along with all of these words where I can get really lost and confused, I find it easier to follow along with the chart. And because the chart shows the decreases built along 9 stitch pattern repeats, I've gone ahead and worked up a small swatch with 9 stitch pattern repeats, so we can literally work the entire stitch pattern as shown in the chart. So that way, as you're following along with the words as far as what rows you have to repeat and when, you will have no doubt how to work those rows. Does that sound like a plan? Let's take a peek at the chart before we jump in. I know some of you are thinking, oh, Marley and her charts, but I do want to remind you that the words for this chart are still in the pattern. So you can follow along with the words if the chart is not your cup of tea. But you can see here on the chart that we have 9 stitch pattern repeats, and we will be decreasing along these edges just like so to get that shaping on the dress that we talked about here at the very start. It's really the shaping from like just about mid-waist to the top of the shoulder. So we're coming up just like so to finish off the dress. In order to follow along with this chart row for row, I do have a total of 9 repeats already worked up. So I did a total of 73 double crochets, and then I went ahead and worked row 1. Why didn't I show you how to do row 1 here on video? Because you already know how to do it. I actually already showed you in video 1. When we set up the lace portion at the bottom of the dress for video 1, we skipped double crochets and worked stitches when indicated. We're going to do the exact same thing for this section to set up the lace, only instead of skipping double crochets, we're skipping half double crochets in order to set up our lace pattern. Once the lace pattern is set up, it's as simple as following the instructions, or for my case, following the chart instructions. So I'm going to grab my swatch. You can grab your actual project should you wish and follow along with me. Let's get this section complete. When I left you at the end of video 1, I had just completed this bit of the bias section, and so obviously this is not large enough to have my 9 repeats. So I have went ahead and I did a series of foundation double crochets. I did 73 of them, and then I did my first row of my stitch pattern repeats. So I have 9 repeats here. Remember, the stitch pattern multiple for the lace section is 8 plus 1, so that's why I have 73 double crochets that I just worked into. Okay, so all of that is to say, hey, we're getting ready to jump in and let's start. Here we go, y'all. So we begin with a chain 3 and turn. So this would be row 2 of this lace portion. We will skip all of these stitches and jump right over here to this chain 1 space and work a single crochet. Now what we've done here is we've already done our decreasing to this point. Can you see that? So we're already beginning to shape the edge that we need. Once we get that single crochet there, it's a matter of following along in our regular stitch pattern all the way down to the last chain 1 space. So we carry on with the stitch pattern, which we know is chain 3, and then do a 3 double crochet cluster into the next single crochet. Chain 3, make sure you don't make those chains super tight. Do a single crochet in the next chain 1 space, and then carry on in the pattern. This is my last 3 double crochet cluster. So I will chain 3, do a single crochet in that chain 1 space, and then that would be the end of my row, but I want to do a double crochet all the way over here into that single crochet. And what that's going to do is going to give me a nice clean line to have my work finished off. Okay, so there's a double crochet all the way over here to that single crochet. Now I move on to row 3 and I start off with a chain 3. Whoops, 1, 2, 3, and turn. I will now place 2 double crochet into this first single crochet. Chain 2, single crochet in the top of this 3 double crochet cluster. Whoops, chain 2, and I'm back to my stitch pattern repeat. So I do my 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, all in the next single crochet. Chain 2, single crochet in the 3 double crochet cluster, chain 2, and carry on down the row. I'm coming up to the end of my row here, and I'm going to do my 2 chains, work a single crochet in the top of that cluster, and then chain 2, and place 2 double crochets in this last single. So there's 1 and 2, and then place a double crochet in the 3rd chain of this turning chain there. Okay, so I'm going to place a double crochet in the 3rd chain of that turning chain. You see that? And I move on to row 4, which has us begin with a chain 3 and turn. Moving right along here because these are stitches that you should know how to do, but I want to make sure I get to the beginning and the end so that you can follow along with the instructions, okay? So I have chained 4 and I start off with a cluster. So I'm going to do my 3 double crochet cluster right there into that single crochet. So I'm skipping all of that right there, just coming all the way over here and doing my 3 double crochet cluster. And then chain 3, single crochet in the next chain 1 space, and then carry on with the stitch pattern that we're very familiar with by this point until we get to the end of this row. All right, so I'm getting down to my last cluster, which I'll have to do on this row. Hold on, I just did my singles. There's my 3 chains. Here's my cluster. And I finish off this row with a chain 1 and then half double crochet in the 3rd chain of that turning chain from the row below. So I half double right there. Okay, so that's the end of row 4. You can already see the shaping is starting to take place. And we jump into row 5, which is a chain 2 and turn. We now will do a single crochet in the top of this cluster right there. So that's all that we're going to do right here is just do a single crochet in the top of that cluster. Pretty easy, right? And now we're going to jump right into our stitch pattern. So we chain 2 and then go right into our 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into that single. So all we're doing when we do our decreases along the sides we're just decreasing the number of stitches we have, but as we work in, we'll eventually get to the point where you keep repeating your repeats just like we normally would until we get down to where we just have 1 repeat left. And so it's really not that difficult as long as you understand what those stitches are doing on the sides and that they are creating that shape, so that way we can get that nice sort of like a triangle, a bias, and have everything come together at the shoulder point. All right, so I'm gonna keep going here. Carry on with my stitch pattern that I am very familiar with. I am coming up to the end of row 5 and I'm doing my shell here, my 2 doubles, chain 1, and then 2 doubles. So there's 1 and 2. And I finish off row 5 by chaining 2, single crochet into my triple cluster here like I have been doing all along. And then I'm supposed to do a half double crochet into this section right here, okay? So I can do it, I'm gonna do it right there into the second stitch of that chain 3. I think that just makes it cleaner. So I'm going to do it right there. And I'm doing that based on the chart. It might be written that way in the instructions. I don't have the written one in front of me, but that's where I'm going to put it. I'm going to put it in that second chain right there, that half double. You guys understand why I put it in that second stitch, right? It just makes a cleaner line. And so I think that that's just looks better. So I'm going to put it there. But if you choose to put it somewhere else, you absolutely can. All right, so I have chained 4. I'm going to jump over here to the top of this single, or that's a chain 1 space, and I'm doing a single crochet. All right, so there's my line right there that's happening. So I've done my single crochet, chain 3, do my cluster in the next single. So now I'm just continuing on with my stitch pattern. And I will do this until I get to the end of the row. So when I get to my last chain 1 space where I do the single, that's when we need to look at how we're going to end this row. All right, this is my last cluster. So I'm going to chain 3, put a single crochet in this last chain 1 space, chain 1, and I will do a double crochet into the second chain of this turning chain right here. So that's what I'm supposed to do. So let's go ahead. Oop, not that one, down here. This is where I'm supposed to be. There it is. I'm supposed to come down here. So not this, but down here, I want to do a double crochet. There we are. Almost did a faux pas there. All right, so that is the end of row 6. Let's move on to row 7, which has us begin with a chain 3. Turn our work. We start off with 3 double crochets into this single crochet, and these are independent double crochets. It is not a cluster. So we do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and now we jump into our stitch pattern. So we did a single on top of our cluster, chain 2, and we go back into the shell. All right, so I am almost down to my last single crochet into the cluster. And now I want to go ahead and chain 2. And then in this single crochet, I will do 3 doubles. So there's 1, 2, 3. And then I will place a double crochet. I'm going to place it in the 3rd chain of this chain 4. I'm going to place it in the 3rd one because that's what it looks like it goes into based on the chart. All right, so that is the end of my row 7. If I set this down, you should be able to begin to see, I'm going to pull it together a little bit. See how this is really coming in? It's going to come together just like this, and that's what we want, all right? So that was row 7. Let's go ahead and jump into row 8 without any hesitation. We start off row 8 with a chain 2 and then turn our work. And we will place a single crochet in that 3rd double crochet. So not the 1st, not the 2nd, but in the 3rd, you will do a single crochet. Then you chain 1, and we're right here to where this single crochet is, and that's where we want our cluster. So we will start with our 3 double crochet cluster, and we're on that particular row, and so we know how this works. So we continue on with that stitch pattern down the row until we get to the end. All right, I am coming up to my last cluster here. So I will do my last 3 double crochet cluster for this row. And I finish off with a chain 1, and I am going to do a half double crochet 2 together with these 2 stitches. So not the chain, but these 2 double crochets. So I yarn over my hook, skip 1 double crochet, go to the next, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over my hook, go to the next double crochet, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and draw through all 5 loops on my hook. We know how that works. We did that the entire section of the half double crochet bias, right? So we know how to do that stitch, no problem. So now that's the end of row 8. Let's move on to row 9. Row 9 has us begin with a chain 3 and turn. And we will jump all the way over here to this cluster, and we will single crochet. Now we jump into our stitch pattern, chain 2, and continue on with the stitch pattern that you are oh so familiar with. I'm finishing up my last shell of this row, and I will chain 2, single crochet into that 3 double crochet cluster. And then I will double crochet all the way over here. And the way it looks in the stitch diagram is it's not in the single crochet, okay? It looks like it's over here into the 2nd chain of this chain 2 turn. So that's where I will place that double crochet. Plus, that makes my line a little bit more smooth there. Can you see that? That makes the line nice and straight. So if you're in doubt, you want a nice straight line there. So that's what we're going for. All right, so that wraps up row 9. Let's start row 10 with our chain 3 and turn. All right, so this is our 18 row repeat, guys, and we are on row 10 of the 18 rows. So we've done our chain 3 and turn. We will place a double crochet in this first single crochet. Now we jump into our pattern. We chain 2, single crochet in that chain 1 space, chain 3, and then 3 double crochet cluster in the single crochet. So we will continue on down this row following the pattern we've already established until we get to the end of the row where we will work our shaping once again. I am to the last single crochet into that chain 1 space. I will chain 2, and I'm going to do a double crochet 2 together into this single crochet and this third chain right there. And that's really going to clean up that line. So let's go ahead, yarn over our hook, go into that single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Yarn over our hook, go into that third chain of that turning chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through all 3 loops on your hook. And you can see even right here, see how nice and clean that line is? It just makes it nice and straight right there. So that's the end of row 10. Let's move on to row 11. We are nearly there. We've past the midway point. Let's keep going. I believe in you. You can do this. All right. Row 11 has us start off with a chain 1 and turn. Then we single crochet into the top of that double crochet 2 together we did. Now we don't have any chains or anything as we jump to this next stitch. So right here in this single crochet, we will start off with our shell pattern of our 2 doubles. Oh gosh, let's start that again. So we will do our 2 doubles. So there's 1 and 2, chain 1, and then 2 doubles. Chain 2, single crochet in the top of that 3 double crochet cluster, chain 2, and then carry on in your stitch pattern down the row. At the end of the row, when you complete your shell in that last single crochet, we are not going to work the 2 chains that we normally would do before we do that single crochet in the next stitch. All right, we're going to just jump to the next stitch and work our single crochet right here. Okay, it's going to go right there in that stitch. We're going to, it's the top of that double, and there's the chain 3, so we're going to put our single right there. So just as when we started this row, we did a single and we didn't do any chains before we jumped into the shell, we finished the row in that same way. And as I set this down, once again, you're really starting to see how it's coming together and really taking shape the way we want it to take shape. Pretty cool, right? I like this. I think it's gratifying to see the shaping really take place. All right, so that is the end of row 11. Let's jump into the rest of the rows, and we're going to introduce something different here with row 12, so pay attention. Row 12, we do not start off with a chain 1 or a chain 2 or a chain 3. You simply turn your work, and we are going to slip stitch up to this chain 1 space. So I will slip stitch into that first double crochet, slip stitch into that next double crochet, and then we will chain 1 and single crochet into that chain 1 space. All right, so what we've done here is because our line is already nice and straight, we didn't have to do any additional stitches there. We just had to get to where it was time for us to work our stitch right here. So we could have finished off our work and rejoined, but why bother doing that when we can just slip stitch up to where we need to begin? So that's what we've done here. We've slip stitched up to where we need to start. And now we go ahead and continue on in our pattern. So I chain 3, build my 3 double crochet cluster on top of the single, and so on and so forth until I get to the end of the row. The end of this row is really super easy. Are you guys ready for this? We're going to chain 3 right here after our last cluster. And when we get to the next chain 1 space, we will single crochet, and that's the end. We don't have to do anything else. So just as down here, we slip stitched up to that single crochet, or not single crochet, the chain 1 space, we just end at the chain 1 space over here on this side, because once again, we get that nice line already established there. Pretty cool, right? So that was row 12. Let's do row 13. Has us begin with a chain 4. All right, chain 4, here we go. We will jump over here to this 3 double crochet cluster and single crochet, chain 2, and carry on with our stitch pattern. All right, so I just finished my last shell of this row. I chain 2, single crochet in that last 3 double crochet cluster, and now I will chain 1 and then double crochet into this single crochet that we ended on the last row. Again, this is going to give me my line that I want, right? This is the line I want here. So that double crochet is giving me that line. Now I go ahead and I move on to row 14, and it starts off with a chain 2, turn my work, and I begin with my 3 double crochet cluster right here into this first single crochet. Notice we are decreasing with each row, right? And so you will notice that it will start getting faster and faster because you have fewer stitches to work with. When you get to the last chain 1 space, do your single crochet, chain 3, work your 3 double crochet cluster in that last single crochet. Okay, and then we're going to end with a half double crochet into the second chain of this turning chain here. The second or the third, which one looks, I think the third probably looks better. So I'm going to put it in the third. Yeah, that's a cleaner line. I'll put it in the third. Okay, it probably says that in the written instructions, but again, I'm just going by the chart, so I'm trying to pay attention to how this works, just so that you guys can know why I am like second or third. All right, so that was row 14. Let's move on to row 15. We will chain 1 and turn our work. We start with the single crochet right here in this 3 double crochet cluster. Oh, it's getting so pretty. Look, we're getting down to fewer and fewer stitches. I love this. I love the way a good angle happens, and it's just so pretty. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry, got distracted. All right, so single crochet, chain 2, and then jump into our stitch pattern along the way here. And we will end with our single crochet, I do believe. See, chain 2, single crochet into that cluster, chain 2, work our shell, chain 2, single crochet into the cluster, chain 2, work our shell, chain 2, and then we will single crochet right here into this last cluster. Okay, so this was actually like one of the last full stitch pattern repeats that we did, because we started with a single and then we did a full stitch pattern repeat, full stitch pattern repeat, full stitch pattern repeat. Kind of nice when that happens. All right, so on row 16, we jump back to doing some slip stitches. Once again, we know how to do that, so let's jump on in. I will go ahead and turn my work. I'm on row 16. And this time our slip stitches are going to go into these chains, okay? So I'm going to just go in, I'm literally going into the chain just as if I was working into a foundation chain, and I will slip stitch up. So there was one, and here's two, okay? Now I will chain two and single crochet in that chain one space. See how I'm still getting that really nice line? So by slip stitching over and then doing my chain two, I'm getting this nice line. I probably could have slip stitched all the way over to that chain one space, but because it's not written in the instructions, I don't want to change that up, but I probably could have done that and still gotten the nice clean line, but I'm not going to fuss with instructions when they're working out pretty all right so far. All right, so I have a slip stitch over, single crocheted into that chain one space, and now I can jump into my stitch pattern of chain three, 3 double crochet cluster into the single, chain 3, single into the next chain one space, chain 3, 3 double crochet cluster, chain 3, single into this last chain one space, and then don't chain or anything, but we're going to end with a half double crochet into either that last double or this chain 3. Is that a chain 3 there? Chain 2. So that's the chain 2. My instinct is, by looking at the pattern here, I want to put it in the second chain of that chain 2. I think that's going to give me a cleaner line. So I'm going to yarn over my hook, go into that second chain, and do a half double. And let's take a look. Yeah, see how that gives me a nice clean edge right there? And that's what I'm going for. I'm going for that nice clean edge. So I like that. Row 17 has us begin with a chain 3 and turn. I have a double crochet worked into this first single crochet. So I will work a double into that single, chain 2, single into the top of that cluster right there, chain 2, work my shell, chain 2, single in that cluster, chain 2, and then I will work a, let's see there, this is a double crochet 2 together right here. So I will yarn over my hook, go into the single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over my hook, go into this second chain of that 2 chain turn there, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, so I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, draw through all 3 loops. Move on to row 18, I chain 2. Oh my gosh, this is so gratifying. I'm so close to the end. Chain 2, do a 3 double crochet cluster into that first single crochet, chain 3, single crochet in this chain 1 space, chain 3, another 3 double crochet cluster in the next chain 1 space, and then I will end with a half double crochet, and again I decide whether I want to put it into that stitch or into that turning chain. I'm going to go into the turning chain just to be consistent with what I've been doing. So I did the half double. Now I'm on row 19, which is the last row on the chart. And we'll talk about these written instructions again here in just a second. So let's get this one done. I will go ahead and chain 1 and turn my work. Single crochet in the top of that cluster, chain 2, and then work my shell here at the top, chain 1, finish my shell, chain 2, and then end with a single crochet over here into that cluster. All right, so that would be the end of my chart. So as I set this down, for the chart itself, it ends with a shell at the top. It might be that a couple of the sizes end with a cluster at the top. It all depends on how many repeats you have at the start after the half double crochet bias. I will be honest with you, it feels good to have this section complete and being able to work through the entire chart with you here on the video. So there are no questions. You should be okay. I worked through it really quickly, as quickly as I could, so that way you didn't have to be here forever, but now you know how to do every single row. Now the question might be, how often do you need to do those rows? So let's take a look at the written instructions once again so that we can go over this, all right? The written instructions have you work through row 19, okay? No matter on what size you're making, you work through row 19, which we just did, okay? Then it says rows 20 through 55, or 55 for the next size up, 73 for the next size up, or 91 for the next size up. You would repeat rows 2 through 19 X number of times. So what's important to point out here is, yes, this chart shows you all of these stitches condensing down just to this one, but we very easily could expand this chart, and instead of having 9 repeats at the bottom, we could have 18 repeats at the bottom. And that's where you would have to have this row repeat doubled up or tripled up or quadrupled up, depending on how many repeats you have across, okay? So even though this particular chart shows these 18, 19 rows completely coming up to where it's just one, if you have more than 9 stitches, obviously you're going to need more rows to get down to where it's just one, okay? So can you use this chart even though you have all these extra repeats to do for your dress? Absolutely. Just know that if we were to say, let's just say the first stitch repeat in until you, let's rephrase it this way. Those first stitches in until you can begin your repeat across, those are what are going to change. So those are what's changing every single row, every time you do your repeat. The center bit, where it's just your basic repeat that we know inside and out now, that is going to be the same until you get down to that one stitch pattern. But it's those outside stitches at either side that's going to change. So we could have, as I mentioned, 18 repeats, work rows 1 through 19, and then we could be like, okay, so that got rid of nine of my repeats. I have 9 more repeats to go. What do I do? All right, so we jump back down here and we would start again with row 2. So even though you finished with row 19, you would start back down here at row 2. So you would finish row 19 right there with that single crochet. All right, which is very similar to single crochet right here. So you would just jump into row 2 and begin working your repeats again on row 2 all the way through row 19. It's really not that difficult, and it's pretty ingenious the way that this stitch pattern repeat works like that. I love that part of working with patterns, when you can go from a row 19 and jump back down to row 2, and it's just as if you were carrying on in pattern, because that's what you're doing. Essentially, as I mentioned, you're going from about the waist to the shoulder, and you're condensing everything down to where it's the other shoulder. So if I were to pick up my little swatch here, it's as if, you know, it's like I worked across like that. Does that make sense? So this bias right here, that would be across my body. Pretty neat how that works out. Isn't that just cool? I love how that is so unique. The way that Ron did that, it's pretty fascinating. Now, what do you do once you finish this part? Once you finish this section of your dress, the instructions tell you not to finish off. It tells you to go ahead and jump into the top edging right here. My problem with that is, if I do that, my single crochet that I finished with is right here. And so my point is all the way over here. And so I don't like that. I would actually go ahead, finish off my work, and then rejoin out here, and then evenly single crochet along this top edge of the piece right there, okay? Let's go ahead and take a look at the finished sample so you can see exactly what it is you're supposed to do. I'm assuming you already know how to single crochet and then how to double crochet on top of single crochets, but I don't know if you really understand what it is you're going to be doing. So let's take a look at the sample. Here is the finished sample, and we're just taking a look at one of the sides. Both sides are identical, by the way. And you can see here, there is a nice row of single crochets and then a row of double crochets right on top of that. So what we've done here is we've essentially finished off our dress. So that way we have a nice section that's going to rest on our shoulders. Taking a look at the shoulder right down here, you can see that we have single crochets evenly spaced all along the lace edge right here at the top of the dress, okay? And we work 2 rows of single crochet and then you do a couple rows of double crochets, okay? And that's just going to give this nice finishing section right up here at the top. And you'll do that for both the back and the front, okay? They're both identical. The other thing I want to point out here is when you finish with the back and you get ready to start the front, you do not have to have both the back and the front be identical in color. The way that the yarn works up, you might end up that you start with a different color at the beginning and get to a different color by the time you get to the center section, and that is okay. The design is meant to be versatile like that. Now, if you are very I want to say type A or OCD or everything has to be identical, you could do that as well. Whatever floats your boat. I'm just letting you know that if it does not match up perfectly, that is okay. And you will even notice that here on the sample, the front edge of this one, so this is nice and cream down here, and it goes to this nice beautiful taupe color, but on the opposite side, it's sort of this cream and it goes to a grayish color, okay? And then it goes down to this sort of taupe. So they do not match identical on both sides at all, okay? And that is all right. When you are done with the front and the back, you then will want to block and let's say wash and block your pieces. Remember in video 1 when I mentioned that as you're working these pieces, they might seem a little bit distorted or a little bit biased. That is okay. It actually is written in the instructions that that happens. When you wash, wash with some soap your piece and then block it out to the finished measurement, that will even out all of the stitches and make your dress nice and flat. Now, what do I mean by block it out to the measurements? Let's take a look at the pattern once again and notice this little section right here on page 3. This section here represents the front and the back of the dress. And you'll notice there are some measurements written right down here at the bottom and right here along the side. Unless you made changes to your pattern, these measurements are approximately what you should be able to get with your dress. So after you wash your dress pieces, because they're still in pieces, pin them out and block them to those measurements. So that way when you seam it together, it will be nice and clean and you'll get a nice straight edge. Once it is washed and blocked and dried, that's when you will want to seam together the shoulders first. Because I don't have 2 swatches right here, we just spent so much time on that one, I'm not going to take the time to work up some swatches when I have a sample. But you can see here at the shoulder, all that is done is Ron looks like he single crocheted the pieces together. So he matched up with the wrongs or the right sides facing each other. So the right sides were facing each other just like so. And he single crocheted the edges together and he created this really nice shoulder. And he did it for both sides. Obviously, we have 2 shoulders, okay? And there is an opening here. See that opening? The instructions tell you how wide of an opening you're supposed to leave for your head to fit through because you want to be able to wear this, right? So you need to make sure you leave an opening for your head to fit through the top of the dress. Once you're done seaming the shoulders, then you can go ahead and measure down from the top of the dress to the point where it would be the bottom of your armhole. So somewhere between 9 to 10.5 inches, a little bit more if you want, totally up to you. This is customizable. But from that point at the bottom of your armhole down, you will seam those pieces together. And Ron suggested that you use a single crochet join or a slip stitch join to add strength to your dress. And I agree with him. I think a whip stitch just isn't enough when it comes to this. You want to make sure that you are doing a single crochet or a slip stitch join. And once again, when you join those pieces together, make sure that you have the right sides of the pieces together. All right, so right sides together. And then single crochet or slip stitch those pieces together just like so. And it'll give you a nice structured piece that you will be proud of. What's great is with the foundation double crochet we did, we have some nice stretch. So as you're wearing your piece and you maybe sit down and it stretches the bottom a little bit, you don't have to worry about popping a stitch. You're going to have a little bit of give there with the foundation double crochets. You have the lovely stitch pattern all the way down the body of the dress, this nice solid section, what I said, the bias part, which is sort of, to me, it's like the body section. It's just it's so pretty. It's like the perfect placement. I absolutely love this dress. I think it's truly unique. I think you will love making it. Hopefully with these two videos, you'll have no problem getting to the finish line and wearing this dress at your next outing to the pool or to the beach, or even, I mean, I don't know where you want to wear it. I know that a friend of mine has a slip that she put on and she wore this as a real dress. Like, it's so pretty. Just two rectangles, a little bit of shaping, and look what you can do. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I am Marley Bird, proud national spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns. This is the Sure Thing dress by my friend Ron Strong. I will talk to you guys again soon. Make sure you check out other videos right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel to make you a better knitter and crocheter. Bye. Hey, thanks for joining me today on the channel. If you want more videos just like that one, check out some of these other videos that I've already handpicked for you. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that way you're up to date whenever I release a new video. And don't forget, smash that like button, as my kids say. Bye, guys.